This video is brought to you by water. Drink it. What's up guys, it's Dom, welcome back to another video, and today we're doing something a little bit different. It's actually been a while since I've done sort of a vlog type video, but today I'm going to be showing you my vinyl collection, which is something I've been working on for about a year, I think. This is a video that I've actually been wanting to film for a while, and basically I'm just going to run through my vinyl collection, talk about each album a little bit, and just highlight some good music overall. Now, I don't have a ton of classic vinyl. Mostly my collection that I have personally is albums that have specifically touched me in a way, or are really important to me, or I'm just a huge fan of the music. But basically I'm going to run through the collection, and yeah, that's it. Alright, so this list is in no particular order, but we're going to start off with a record that's somewhat new. It's Social Cues by Cage the Elephant. I actually think this is the best album they've released. When I first heard it, I was in awe. It's super emotional. It's mostly about the narrative of Matt Schultz, the lead singer of Cage the Elephant himself, and about his divorce, so it's super emotional, but there's also some bangers on here. A couple of my favorite songs on this album: Black Madonna, Ready to Let Go, and Social Cues. Those are all great tracks on this album, super emotional. It almost made me cry the first time, especially that last track. Ooh, it hits hard. But yeah, this is a great album, and I recommend listening to it, especially if you're a fan of like alternative rock. Also, I totally get like American Horror Story vibes from like the inside cover here. Like we're talking season 1. But yeah, it's super cool. I love the aesthetic of this album. Moving on, I'm actually wearing their hat right now. We got a Panic at the Disco record. Personally, I think this is their best record. It's Death of a Bachelor. It reminds me a lot of Queen, and he's got like Frank Sinatra styles thrown in there. It's just, this album explores so many different things, yet it works so well. And of course, Brendon Urie is just like one of the most talented people on this planet right now. So there it is, Death of a Bachelor. Favorite tracks on this one, gotta be Impossible Year, definitely one of my favorites, one of my favorite Panic songs altogether. LA Devotee and Emperor's New Clothes, those are great tracks. Yeah, this album is super fun to listen to. No complaints with this one. Next up, we got In Rainbows by Radiohead. I've always been such a fan of the cover art of this one, and a lot of these albums too. I think the art is something that often goes underrated with a lot of albums, but whoa, that almost fell out. Okay. Anyways, In Rainbows. I was gonna go with OK Computer to buy as my first Radiohead album, which I'm probably still gonna buy OK Computer because it's such a classic album. But something about In Rainbows, it's much more concise, and also OK Computer costs like $50 on vinyl because there's so many tracks on the remaster of that album. But In Rainbows has such a nice aesthetic to it. This is a type of album that will make you cry and dance, because that last track, Videotape, is super sad, one of the saddest songs I've ever heard in my life. But you also have some bangers on here like Body Snatchers and 15 Steps, so this album will take you for a ride, and honestly, just a masterpiece. I don't have to tell you how good Radiohead is. Everyone knows how good they are. Next up, we got American Beauty, American Psycho by Fall Out Boy. Probably my favorite Fall Out Boy record, just because, I don't know, I like their old stuff, but something about this new stuff and the catchy hooks and the way they've evolved really grabs me and holds my attention for longer. Although their latest record, Mania, I don't know, kind of iffy to me. But favorite tracks on this one gotta be Irresistible, Twin Skeletons, and The Kids Aren't Alright. But overall, a great record. I saw them live and they were an absolute treat. They're so fun to watch, and yeah, this album, it kicks ass. And the next record we got on here is The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance, for all you emos out there. But yeah, everyone knows this album is a classic. So many great songs on here. Obviously, Welcome to the Black Parade is an amazingly written song. Production is incredible on this album, and it just sounds so crisp and clean. And, you know, every song's a banger pretty much. And a lot of sad ones on here too. Cancer always gets me. And yeah, look at the album art on this thing. It's crazy. Yeah. Obviously a classic, you gotta go with My Chemical Romance. Next up, we got a Nirvana album, but it's actually not a studio album. It's their MTV Unplugged Live in New York album. And to me, honestly, this album is just like a piece of history, honestly, because it's their straight live performance all the way through. You can hear the little banter in between, and it's just, they bleed talent. Obviously, Nirvana's classic band, Kurt Cobain, genius, you know, touched the music scene in such a way that few have before. So obviously Nirvana had to go with a Nirvana album. I have another one coming up later down the list, but yeah, I don't know. This just feels like a piece of history to me. The live MTV Unplugged recording session. But yeah, there's that one. Next up is a band that you may or may not have heard of, but you may have heard of their lead singer Dallin Weekes. It's a band called I Don't Know How, But They Found Me, often shortened to IDK How, because wow, that is a long band name. But I actually recently saw them in concert and they are awesome. They are super fun. This is actually their first album, although it's more of an EP, I think is what they're referring to it as. But it has 6 tracks. The first one is actually an introduction track, so they actually only have 5 songs on here. So it's nice and short and sweet, but if you want a new band to get into, this is the one to get into because they're brand new on the scene, but they're both seasoned musicians. Dallin Weekes and Ryan Seaman, both in the band, are great musicians. Dallin Weekes, amazing singer and bass player. They were so fun to see live. But pretty much this is a great, short, concise little EP that you can jump into. They have like this nice like 30s aesthetic almost, or no, not 30s, like 80s, I'd say. Yeah, why did I say 30s? These little bumps and scratches and scrapes on the cover right here are intentional. I did not do that. Trust me, I treat my albums right. And but yeah, favorite songs on here gotta be Absinthe and Do It All the Time. Both bangers, so check it out. Next album we got best Coldplay album, Don't At Me. It's A Rush of Blood to the Head. Obviously a classic, great songs on here, and gosh, look at that album art. It's so good, so good. Favorite songs on here gotta be Clocks, The Scientist, and In My Place. You know, can't go wrong with Coldplay. If you already aren't a fan of Coldplay, this album won't win you over because they pretty much, a lot of their albums sound same-ish, although they've evolved into a more poppy sound. But I do like Coldplay as a band in general, but this is I think their crowning achievement thus far. Next up, one of my all-time favorite bands, I'm talking top 3, Nothing But Thieves. It's an album called Broken Machine. If you have not heard this record and you are a fan of rock music, you need to listen to this record. It is a masterpiece. Look at this album art, first of all. It's beautiful. Track listing is, every single one of these songs is amazing in their own way. They got so many different tastes here. This album is about the lead singer's struggles, like mental health, and just like his, sort of like a dive into his mind almost. The album title, Broken Machine, that is significant because the lead singer feels like a broken machine. Broken Machine, great record. Favorite tracks on here, gotta be Sorry, let's see, Hell Yeah, Get Better. Honestly, all of these songs, Amsterdam, all these songs are great. If you need to listen to this record if you love rock music. Amazing, amazing record. Next up, we got some electronic music. We got Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, and ignore that little damage there I did to the record. Yeah, I take back what I said about treating my records right. But anyways, oh my goodness, I totally forgot this was on the inside. Look how cool that is. Look at that keyboard. I want that keyboard, even though it's probably like thousands of dollars. But anyways, obviously, record won a bunch of Grammys. It's great. The production is stunning. The track list is great. This is the type of music that'll get stuck under your skin, even though it doesn't always have like the catchiest hooks, but you'll find yourself humming along to even like the bass lines. There's not even like singing on all of these tracks, but you know, impeccable. Like, this is a marvel in music production, and it's just, yeah, Daft Punk, they're amazing. Another electronic record. This one will take you for a trip if you listen to this album start to finish. That's the only way to listen to this record, I feel. Although, except for Midnight City, that one was sort of a radio hit, but still a great song. M83's Hurry Up, We're Dreaming. The aesthetic of this album and the trip that it takes you on feels like you're in another world. It'll take you back to your childhood. It'll flash you forward to the future. I'm telling you, this album is an experience. Track listing's great. Midnight City's probably my favorite on here, although the outro song is amazing. Great production on this thing. A masterpiece, honestly. M83, check them out if you haven't. Honestly, probably their best album, though. I'm not sure about their other albums, but yeah, great album. Speaking of taking you places, we're going to go to a galaxy far, far away with Star Wars, The Phantom Menace soundtrack. Obviously not the best Star Wars movie, but John Williams, obviously, genius. And oh my gosh, you have to see what this album looks like. I haven't shown you the discs of any albums so far, but I feel like I definitely have to show this one. Look at this. Isn't that crazy? It's like stars, and when that thing is spinning on my turntable, it looks like freaking an orbital strike or something. But yeah, pretty much it's the Star Wars soundtrack. What more could you ask for? Obviously, John Williams is a classic composer in the film world, and yeah, Star Wars. Next up, we got their best album because, gotta admit, this band has been going downhill lately. Still am a big fan of them, saw them live, put on a good show, but here we are, Imagine Dragons, Night Visions, their best work to date, I still think. So many like hits on here. You got Radioactive, On Top of the World, Amsterdam, It's Time. You know, this album makes you feel all warm inside. It's super catchy, and they're one of the most unique bands out there. Not so much nowadays, but their sound when they first came out was super mesmerizing, and this album is great. Coming up, we got another one of my favorite bands, probably top 5 for me. We got AWOL Nation. I've been with this band for as long as I can remember. They were a part of my childhood, and I think this is their best album here. We got Run. You may have recognized the title or the song Run because it was quite a meme on Vine, but bunch of bangers on here. It's super like introspective too. It's got some slow and really deeply emotional moments. And just it's so interesting to listen to. All these songs are so different, and this album will keep you on your toes. It is quite the trip. Favorite songs on here gotta be Run, Hollow Moon, Kooks Everywhere, and let's see, Drinking Lightning, Headrest for My Soul. All great songs. If you want to go on like an experimental like electronic rock trip, this album is something else. Next up, got another classic here. It's Green Day's American Idiot. Obviously, this one speaks for itself. American Idiot is such a classic song, and when you got Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Holiday, stuff like that. Let's see here. Jesus of Suburbia, Wake Me Up When September Ends, Give Me Novocaine. So good. Next up, we got an underrated band alert. It's Young the Giant. This album is called Home of the Strange, my favorite album by them. And this album is... it sounds so pretty. This band has such catchy hooks, great instrumentals in all of them. It's almost dreamlike in some parts, but then it's super funky and groovy in others. This band will get under your skin. If you listen to this album in full, you will remember it because these songs just make you want to dance. This album also has a lot of messages about like immigration and stuff like that. Obviously the title, and you can tell by the artwork. Home of the Strange, definitely recommend. Great band, check them out. This album's great. Next up, we got the legendary guitarist Jack White, but it's actually not a White Stripes album. It's his latest album, solo album, I should say, Boarding House Reach. This is a achievement in electronic and experimental rock. Highlights on here are Corporation, Over and Over and Over, and Ice Station Zebra. Connected by Love's a great one too. This album might be a little bit hard for some people to get behind because of the dissonance and like the ear-piercing guitars, but it's definitely, this album is honestly, I would call it brave. But yeah, this is another mesmerizing one. Has a lot of messages about technology in it, but obviously I can only go so deep into each of these albums when we still got a lot to discuss. So moving on. Next up, we got Maroon 5, and to be honest, not really a fan of this band anymore. Their last few albums were dare I say, hot garbage. But their first album, Songs About Drain? Their first album, Songs About Jane, is a great album. It's sort of a love album, but it's not like super corny. This is their best album, and this is actually a great album. I don't know what went wrong for them. They sort of got consumed by the pop world, but this album is great. Next up, we got one of the most talked about bands in the rock world, and that is Arctic Monkeys. Arguably their best album, AM. It's super dark, and this aesthetic is super cool. There you go, there's a track listing on the back. Best songs on here: Do I Want to Know, Are You Mine, Number One Party Anthem, Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High, Snap Out of It, Knee Socks. So many great songs on this album. Their newer album, it was okay. Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, it was okay. But this album, so many bangers on here and so many somber moments that really hit home. And what can I say? Great rock album. Next up, we got probably the most iconic cover art that we have out of all of the albums that I have right here. It's Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. And this is one that actually my father had, so there's some wear and tear on it, but I kind of like that it contributes to the aesthetic. And obviously, classic. There's not much I can say about this. It's Pink Floyd, it's Dark Side of the Moon. Next up, we got a bluesy rock band. It's the Black Keys. And first of all, look at this album art, and now look at this, and tell me you're not tripping out right now. Look at that. I'm literally just doing this to myself to mesmerize myself. Oh my god. The reason why I picked Turn Blue over some of their more commercially successful albums like El Camino and Brothers is because something about this album really hits home harder, and it feels more emotional, feels more raw with the vocal delivery and the instrumental on this album. But overall, great album. I'm super excited for their new one coming out. And I think it's 7 days as of when I'm recording this, but yeah, Black Keys, great band. Next up, we got a Weezer album out. Now, what made me buy the white album instead of something more classic like the blue album is because although the blue album has some moments on there and some tracks that outshine pretty much this whole album, something about the white album and this charm and the catchiness and just the aesthetic too, and the way Rivers Cuomo has, the lead singer, improved his voice over time and how it sounds on this album compared to the blue album made me want to buy this one on vinyl instead, just to appreciate more of the detail and some of the higher quality production than what was on the blue album, so I can appreciate it more when I'm spinning it on vinyl rather than streaming it. But yeah, favorite songs on here, favorite one's got to be Wind in Our Sail, Endless Bummer is a great one, and Do You Want to Get High is a great song too. So great album. If you love Weezer, obviously you're probably going to love this album too. Next up, another one of my favorite bands, we got Royal Blood. They only have 2 albums right now, and I chose the latter one. This album is titled How Did We Get So Dark, and let me tell you a little bit about Royal Blood. They are such a great rock band. They go super heavy, super hard on the bass because it's just actually a 2-piece band. It's a drummer and a bassist and a singer. The bassist and the singer are the same person. Why did I say that? But anyway, some of the highlight tracks on here are How Did We Get So Dark, She's Creeping, Where Are You Now, and Sleep is actually my favorite song by them. So if you love like hard-hitting rock music and something that will really knock you off your seat, Royal Blood is the band to go to. They have the catchiest bass lines, and yeah, it's just a great band. Next up, we got Catfish and the Bottlemen. This is sort of a low-key record. It's called The Ride. I believe it's their 2nd album. You got some nice little tunes on here. This album's sort of low-key in that this is one that you want to listen to like in the summer with your windows rolled down. And got some great tracks on here like Heathrow, Glasgow, Postpone, Soundcheck, Twice. You know, great songs on here, great record. I wouldn't be buying it on vinyl if I didn't think it was great, obviously. All of these records are great. I keep saying great. Can I stop saying great? Great, great, great. Stop. Okay. Next up, we got the classic band Toto. I don't know why they just recently rose to prominence with Africa, even though that's always been a great song. It sort of became a meme for a second. But the reason why I chose their greatest hits album is because look at the sheer number of tracks on here. And just because there's so many great Toto songs across all albums, I kind of wanted a good spread of songs instead of like, I didn't have one specific album that I really wanted by Toto, so I chose the greatest hits. But next up, we got the classic Nirvana album. They return once again. It's going to be the album Nevermind, and obviously a classic in grunge music. We got Smells Like Teen Spirit, In Bloom, Come As You Are, Breed, On a Plane. Every song is a banger on this thing. And obviously everyone knows this album. It's a classic rock album. But yeah, pretty much nothing more to say there. It's Nirvana. They kick ass. And the last album we have today is another classic, and it's Queen's A Night at the Opera. Again, this band sort of got some mainstream media attention once again when Bohemian Rhapsody, the film, came out. And yeah, I knew I had to pick up a Queen album as soon as I started collecting vinyl because, you know, it's Queen. Come on. Oh, but we actually have one more album, and those of you who know me know that they are my favorite band, and they are right here. It is 21 Pilots' Trench. I could go on and on talking about this album, but I'm not going to. Maybe I'll talk about it in another video, but their greatest work so far. Just saw them live for the first time, and they're my favorite. They've been my favorite band, so that was a big event for me. But yeah, Trench, gotta be probably one of my favorite albums ever. I actually had Blurry Face on vinyl too, but I actually sold that to a friend, so I'm probably gonna end up buying it again anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, let me know in the comments below, and if I pick up some more vinyl, maybe I'll make a part 2 of this video. But that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next one, and